to State and Local. I'm Anne-Marie Battistone, and you're watching Norfolk Public Access. My guest, I'm going strictly local today, and my guest knows about all things Norfolk, and that would be Jim Lehan. I'm very pleased to have back on the show with me.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Nice
Happy
to be here.
Thanksgiving.
Same to you. Have a nice holiday.
This is the Monday of Thanksgiving week.
It is. Yeah.
Now, I missed the town meeting. I was just exhausted that night, and it was only the one night. But I wish we had the warrants sent to the House, but people voted against that, right? Well, I forgot all about it.
It was noticed that you weren't there. I want you to know that. We did take attendance walking in the door, and there were many comments that you weren't there, along with 95% of the rest of the voters. But anyway, that's another topic. This was an interesting town meeting. Actually, there was a period of time where we really didn't think we were going to hold it. We didn't have a lot of issues that couldn't wait till the spring, so we're kind of to blame for not getting the word out a little bit more to the community. Board of Selectmen really should take that hit because we were kind of on again, off again with this. It's not inexpensive to hold a town meeting, and if you don't really have a need, we try not to, because our bylaw only requires one. The annual meeting in May, but we can call a special town meeting anytime we need it. But what happened, and we pretty much decided not to have it, but what happened was we found out that the schools had a couple of major issues that we had to deal with. They had 40 to 45 more students enroll than they had projected. And they have a very good system for projecting, so they didn't make any mistakes. They really do have a good system in place, but we just had a number of families move into Norfolk over the summer, and perhaps some came back from other schools. One never really knows. But 45 children above your anticipated enrollment is a surprise.
Oh, yes.
So,
wow,
so their budget was underfunded, if you will. And so we had two choices. One, we could just sort of wait till the spring and hope that the town approved us sort of retroactively fixing it, or we could go forward with the fall town meeting and actually appropriate the money. And
did you need to hire another teacher?
I'm sure they did, yeah. I don't know exactly where the costs were. They're better suited to explaining that than I am, but I do know the need was very real. They also had a failing hot water system in the HOD school, and you can't have school without hot water. So we had a $45,000 capital item that had to be taken care of too. And the only thing we have set aside for unanticipated expenses is about $50,000 that's under the direction of the advisory board. And we didn't want to deplete that because we're only a third of the way through the year, and we don't know what's going to happen. So our board felt that rather than leaving the school exposed to spending what they really don't have, the right way, the correct way, is to bring it to the town and have the town appropriate it, because we had the free cash. So that was really the major driver for holding the meeting.
And then how much was appropriated then?
We spent about $189,000 of our free cash, not just for the schools, about $150,000 for the schools, and then another about $36,000 to $38,000 for the fire department. You may remember in the Springtown meeting we tabled a request for a $70,000 expenditure for the fire department because we wanted to kind of rework that. Cole did an outstanding job in coming up with a sort of, I'll call it a revised strategy. And so instead of $70,000, we think we can basically fulfill the same requirements for about $36,000. So
the free cash was the free cash was already there. It wasn't we weren't changing the property tax or anything like that.
No, free cash is made up of basically two things. Well, three really. We either underestimate our revenues, which is a good thing, or we underspend our budgets. And in this case, it was really a combination of both. So our revenues were higher than anticipated, although honestly, we've been very conservative in those estimates anyway. And our people continue to manage their budgets very, very well. So we had a very good year. Sometimes we get one-time funds like a tax lien sale or like we did with the solar panels and things of that nature. That wasn't the case this year. We had over $500,000 of free cash certified.
Wow.
That is available for us, but we don't
want to spend it.
Is that
in a bank? Where is that? In CDs?
The town, well, we're not allowed to do that. There are strict guidelines as to how towns can invest their money. No one's getting any interest here, so it's we're certainly not going to spend it if we don't have to, but we don't do this for investments. So it's sort of like an escrow
type of fund?
It's called a general account. It's just the town maintains one major general account, and then we keep various accounting sections for each of the various components of our budget. So we had the money. and the schools needed it, so we went forward with the meeting. And so the other items, and not a lot on there, we had some CPC articles, and we had an interesting article on the election that had a very interesting discussion around the constables as
yes,
to whether
what's
it's a
the story
2-year
with
term
that?
or a 3-year
I didn't
term.
quite understand what that story is.
Well, we have 2 constables in town,
Right.
and one of the constables resigned prior to his term expiring.
Right.
And we just goofed up. And when the election took place, it was assumed it was a 3-year term, when in fact it should have been a 1-year term.
Oh.
So we had to fix that. And
Was it written when people went to vote? Was it written wrong?
yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but not at the fault of the town clerk. I want to make that clear. This actually happened quite a ways back, where this got kind of mixed up back in the 90s when we researched it. So we just thought, let's fix it and get it the right way. But it was an interesting debate.
So someone thought it was going to be for 3 years.
And it actually should have been for 1.
So what are they going to do?
Right.
What's going to?
Well, we had to inform, actually it was Mr. Flaherty that won the election, and he was very gracious about it, that he was in a 1-year term and that he'd have to run again in May. And as I say, he was very gracious about it. So everything worked out okay.
Because I heard somebody who was there saying, why don't they just let go of it? And I didn't know whether they were referring to him or to who.
Well, it wasn't our article. It was the article brought forward by the town clerk, because they're responsible for that. But it wasn't complicated. It was your choices were pretty simple. If you wanted to vote for the article was to stagger the terms. So to make it a 2-year term and a 3-year term, so you don't have both constables up at the same time.
Oh, okay.
If you wanted it staggered, you voted yes. If you said nope, keep them both 3-year terms and they're both up at the same time, then you voted no.
Right.
And
So it didn't have anything to do with this mix-up about the time and the the rest of the. Oh.
No. And so I think it was viewed a little bit more, that it was, people perceived it to be a little more complicated than it was. It's just,
right.
do you want staggered or not staggered, vote yes or no. That's really that simple.
Oh, okay. All right. And so anything else of note? Or the.
We did some capital. We took advantage of the opportunity that we had the meeting, and we've been backlogged on capital for some time. We did get the prison mitigation money retroactively from the state, which is...
For how many years back?
Well, 1 year, but we'll take anything they send us. As long as the check is good, we'll take it. But they took, you may remember last year, they took out or eliminated our
Yes.
stabilization fund, $228,000. We were literally expecting it in the bank on a Tuesday, and they took it out of the budget on a Monday. I mean, literally that close.
Was it the governor's decision to do
Governor's
that?
decision.
I mean, how can
He
they
has sole discretion over the Department of Correction budget.
But with
So,
no more warning than that?
honestly, no more warning than that. No. So, and we had appropriated, we had asked the town, we had a November meeting, and we had asked the town to approve voting some capital projects, which they did, but it was contingent on spending the money that we expected to be in the bank. So we weren't able, we can't use other sources. When the article is that the
Right.
town votes on,
Right.
and it says, here's the source of funding, that's the source of funding. You can't go change your mind. So we weren't able to purchase the items we needed. So when we got the money retroactively, and it's in the bank,
Now, why did Duval let it go? What happened? How did that?
he didn't call me and tell me, so I don't know. And honestly, I didn't call
For
and ask.
missing his duties.
And no, not at all. He doesn't owe me a phone call. But I didn't call and ask him why either, so we're even.
So nobody knows why they released it?
I honestly don't. And, I don't mean this disrespectfully, but it doesn't matter. As long as we get
Well.
it, we're happy. So I don't know. And we're due another check any day now for
Did
this
they
year's.
say why they didn't give it to us
Budget.
in the first place?
Budget. It's always budget. It's always budget. But that's okay. I mean, we did get it. But because it was, and we thought we could spend it this year, because normally when you get prison mitigation, you can allocate that to capital right away, and you can spend it in the next town meeting. But because it was the prior year's contribution, it has to flow in through our budget and be certified as free cash, so we won't be able to spend it until next year.
Oh,
Government accounting at its best.
now, listen, it seems awfully complicated, the decisions that you all have to make. And as a selectman, how in the world do you know what? How do you know what to do or say or
Well,
judge?
I think you're giving us more credit than we deserve.
Well, it all sounds very complicated.
It's just a matter of learning the system. I think, I come from the corporate world, and so that I ran a large profit center, so I come with that discipline. Government's discipline, while in terms of fiscal responsibility is similar, in terms of the process, it's night and day. And so it's a matter of learning it, and that takes time. It's taken me years to understand how the appropriation system works, and you know, you need the experience in order to understand how to really manage your budgets. It's not something that's normally familiar to someone that isn't in government.
Now, I'm just curious, when are the different terms up? I know Mr. Bugby just came in.
Well,
so he has another 3 years or 2.5.
He's in his second year. I was just reelected last year, so I'm the new guy on the block.
Okay.
Mr. Bugby's in his second year, and Mr. Garrity's in his third year, so he's the one up for reelection this year.
Oh, okay. Is he going to run again?
Well, he gets the only decision on that. I don't know. I think I've heard that he may not, but you know, there's time, so he may change his mind.
Now, with these elections in the town, what happens if nobody comes forward for an opening? They just do without
Remains
it?
open. Yeah, it literally remains open. We have a very interesting election coming up in May.
Yes, what's going
Well, the town moderator has, at the end of last meeting, announced that's her last meeting, so she's not going to run for re-election.
Did she announce that to you, or did she
announced
it
at the meeting?
Oh,
Yeah,
really?
Yeah. She's made it very public. I wouldn't say it here in the show if it weren't public. She's made it very
I
public.
asked someone if it was announced at the meeting, and I thought they said no.
Well, she may not have done it from the microphone, but she certainly told us.
Oh, I see.
I don't. And when we had our pre-meeting, she made it clear that it was her last meeting as well. So.
How long has she been a moderator?
This is her third or fourth year, I think.
Oh, that long?
Yeah. She succeeded Dan.
Right.
So I think it's her third or fourth year, somewhere in that range. And then, of course, you have...
Now, what do you do about that if nobody comes forward?
I
Would
think
one of you have to, or would the town clerk have to?
Town clerk would take over that responsibility, but I'm confident there'll be candidates for moderator. I'm confident of that. And then we have, of course, Mr. Dooley, our town clerk, is running for state rep. So if he is fortunate enough to win that election, we'll have a vacancy for town clerk.
But that primary is the 10th of December.
I believe you're right.
Yeah, and then the election is January 7th.
It's in January. I don't remember the exact date.
Right, because I just had Mr. McCormick from Norfolk on, and so that was just last week that he came on and spoke to me.
And there are always seats up on planning board and other boards, so it should be an interesting election.
So now, how many openings do you have any idea about how many slots there'll be across the different boards?
Well, there are two terms expiring on the planning board. There's a term
are they for 3 years?
They are 3-year terms. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's there's always a board of health and a board of selectmen candidate or office expiring because they're 3-man boards, and so anytime one is always up every year. Let's see, what other boards do we have? Recreation always needs people. We finally appointed someone, but they'll have to run because we can only appoint to fulfill this particular fiscal year. So there'll be recreation, town clerk, potentially town clerk, moderator. I think that's about it. But I mean, we're going to need candidates. So
now, if somebody is it possible for somebody to leave in the middle of a term? I mean, how does that? Does it have to be something? I mean, how does
it happens? I mean, sometimes people job gets transferred, or.
I mean, in other words, do the selectmen make a judgment call on how serious the reason is?
Well, let me give you an example. We have a 5-member board on the planning board, and let's assume one of the members, for whatever personal reasons they may have, can't fulfill his term. Then it would be, we would interview candidates to fill that position, and it would be a joint appointment by the planning board and the board of selectmen. So both boards would vote on it.
I see. All right.
And then we've had that several times. We've had and that appointment is only for the remainder of that particular year, and then they have to run for the office in the following election. So it's only up to the next election that they're fulfilling that term.
Have you heard that there'll be any contested elections? Have you heard
well,
anything?
papers aren't pulled until February, so a lot of folks have, folks have a lot of time to consider it. But I sure hope there are.
Yes.
We need more people involved in government. We're
Well,
only as good as the volunteers.
Have the same point of view and the same, I mean, that's not good.
Yeah, you need a balance. This is a personal bias, but you need a balance on the boards. You need some folks. You don't want a board that's all new,
right?
Because you lose that institutional knowledge,
right.
and sometimes people try to take advantage of that. What you don't know, you can't argue, and so you need a combination of differing views and new thoughts and new ideas, and then you need some folks that have some memory to what's gone on, so that you can, because history is a great forecaster of our future in most instances. So you need that.
You know, I don't live too far from the Gumps property there. I was
Yeah, that's really
astonished at
coming
how
along, isn't it?
fast.
Yeah.
It just seemed like, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, they were over there with some machines, some heavy, equipment, and now, they've got trees coming in over there. Now, what is the percentage that we pay of our? It's a percentage of our property tax.
Correct. It's a percent of your property tax, and there's a $100,000 waiver for on the value of your property. So if your home is worth $100,000, you'll pay no tax for all intents and purposes.
So it's not the first 100,000 you don't pay for.
First 100,000 of your value, you're not taxed on that component of it. So, but it's 3% of the tax, and we've recently had a vote where that was reduced from 3% to 1%. And that took effect in, I believe, January of last year, or January or July, I've forgotten which. But
now, how did it come up that it would go from 3 to 1 instead of, say, 3 to 2?
It was a petition. It was a petition by citizens, and that's what they brought forward.
And they got signatures?
Oh yeah, they have to. Yeah.
Huh? Because I never remembered. I knew it went down. I never remember seeing people around.
Any citizen can bring forward the warrant. The warrant is always the property of the Board of Selectmen, so they decide. That board decides what goes on the warrant. But citizens, and generally it's boards that bring forward recommendations. But any citizen with the appropriate number of signatures can bring forward a petition. It has to be reviewed by council, because I can remember several petitions, frankly, that were. I don't want to say it. Yeah, well, I have to say illegal. There are rules around what you can and you can't do. But assuming it passes that test, at least this board, we would, that's the citizens' right, so we would put it on the warrant.
Is that the same form that they use for the state ballots? The same?
You can petition onto the state ballot as well. Yeah.
But I mean, this one for the town, is it the same? They use the same form from they get that from the state?
I've honestly never seen the state one, so I don't know.
And how many signatures do you need for a town the size of that?
Believe it or not a lot. If it's the annual town meeting, it's only, I believe, 10 signatures or 20, I've forgotten which.
Oh my
but if it's a special town meeting, which is the fall town meeting, it's 100 signatures.
Oh, not much at all.
No, not at all.
Gosh.
So it's democracy at its best. If people feel that there's something that's important to them and there's an issue that they want to bring forward, they have a right to do it.
So the proposition was to take it to 1.
Correct, and it passed.
Now, what's going on over there at Gun? What are they? I see where the kids' place is going to move over there. Is
right. The old kids' place is pretty much, the playground equipment there. I know it was built in the late '80s, early '90s, so it's been there a while. And
is that town? Is that town land over there?
That is town land. We bought that land, believe it or not, back in the '50s. It was an interesting process. We looked into it, and it was bought back in the late '50s, held by the town. No use for it was seen. Fortunately, we didn't sell it.
There are homes on either side, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then Kids Place they were talking about building a Kids Place back in the late 80s, and they needed a location, so a number of places were reviewed, and that place was chosen. So we had the land, and that was a good thing, which is another reason, as you know, we have toyed with the idea of selling the land where Old Town Hall is.
Right.
And I will admit I've been an advocate for selling that because I couldn't see a purpose that the town might have for that land. I was wrong. I didn't think that through properly. And when I researched Kids Place and found out that we bought that in the late 50s and we never found a use for it till the late 80s, wow. You'd think I'd figured that out. That, just because I can't think of some use for it, that doesn't mean that some future board 10 years down might find a great use for it. And it's the only piece of land that we own that's in the B1 district that's owned by the town.
Right.
Everything else is privately owned.
But there seems to be a lot of renovation over there, doesn't there?
On Old Town Hall?
Yes.
No, we haven't touched that building. In fact, that's our problem.
Wouldn't it need a lot of updating?
It's not salvageable. The building is not salvageable.
Oh, the building itself?
No, it's not.
Because I know there was some talk at the cable access about being able to go in there.
But in order to, that building is completely it doesn't meet any of the ADA considerations, none. And to rehab that.
There a ramp in the back to go in the back way?
Yeah, but if you've been in,
I haven't been in there for. No.
Yeah, it's really, it's not manageable. And to upgrade a building like that and to meet those kinds of compliances would cost a fortune.
Well, it might cost as much as redoing Duval's office.
We won't go there. Maybe not that much. I don't know.
That's right, exactly.
But let me go back to CPC for a sec, because I think sometimes people don't fully understand what CPC is. I I hate to reference Norfolk Net, but there was a recent posting on Norfolk Net where someone was inquiring about GUMPs, and they were under the perception that CPC funds were used exclusively for open space, which is not the case. CPC funds basically serve multiple purposes by law. Open space, conservation land, if you will, recreation, both passive and active, historical preservation, which is an example of that is the Grange, for example, and affordable housing as well. So GUMPS to me actually is probably the best example we have in town that fulfills all the requirements, because the law states that certain 10% of your fund has to be set aside for each of these areas. So it's really, I think, the best example we have of the use of CPC funds to fulfill multiple purposes. We have affordable housing, we have active recreation, and we have passive recreation. And there's still about
now
50...
Now by passive you mean people
conservation.
Sort of just sitting...
Conservation land. And there will be community gardens there as well. We won't complete those till next year.
How are they going to run that? Are people going to pay for
we
plots?
haven't figured that out yet, to be honest with you. We've had a lot of proposals, organizations wanting to run it, to people leasing community plots. We haven't gotten there yet, so remains to be seen. But it will be community oriented.
Now, will the town, so will everybody have, so you really don't know any of the details, I mean, because I know most of the yards in Norfolk are pretty big, so if you wanted to have a vegetable, you'd have the space, but I was wondering if maybe the town would turn all that soil over and get it ready for the feed.
We are going to do that. I mean, we're going to make it a wonderful place for that to occur and do all the necessary things to make it work. But we have a lot of people living in condominiums now in town, between River's Edge and especially 55 and up communities like River's Edge. Those folks might like to have an opportunity to do some gardening. So it's a work in progress. It'll be a joint discussion between CPC and the Board of Selectmen and community too, for that matter.
But it looks like a place where older people or adults might go without children and maybe sit and I don't know, read or talk. I mean, but where you have a town where the houses have such big yards.
I know.
That you can be in your house and not really get out and know anybody. There's really no way to do that. I mean, other than say if your children go to the school. But this way, you could go there and sort of meet people and talk. And
I mean, I don't think there's a bad solution. I mean, it'll be a good problem to figure out, but we're not there yet. But we have about 15 acres of land that's all the wooded area behind where Kids Place is.
I've been back there.
It's beautiful land.
Yes.
There are walking trails which we will sort of enhance, but do it in a way that it meets all of the conservation considerations, and that will remain untouched.
What does that butt up against in the back?
Well, it's cornered by Medway Branch, Boardman, Rockwood, and Tucker. It's literally that was all one piece of property at one time.
All right. Oh, okay.
That whole thing was originally the original GUMPS farm, but lots have been sold off over the years and things of that nature that have taken away some of the property.
Because Boardman crosses, isn't that Rock? What is that? What's the name of that street that Boardman crosses there?
Medway Branch to go to the landfill?
No, if you were heading right to go up to Millis when you come to the end of Boardman between
Rockwood.
That is Rockwood.
Rockwood. Yeah.
So it would. Oh, I see. So Rockwood on the one side, and then around the back, it would be coming up again. Oh, I see. All right.
Rockwood's 115 going to Millis. Yeah. So it's a great project, and as I say, it meets all of the criteria for CPC. One of the things I'd love to see us do, and for folks at home, anyone that has this interest, we're begging for this. We have an awful lot of open space in town. We have the Weber property, Highland Lake, a lot of developments like Christina and what's going on over in Fox Run have open space with trails. We have lots of this.
If I may interrupt you, Highland Lake is near my house, but there are houses on the Highland Lake. Now, do people have access through people's property?
There is a road there. No, there's a road there. It's a dirt road.
Between some of the houses?
Yeah, there is a road.
Because I know that it goes back to a dead end.
Yeah, and it's actually, believe it or not, an extension of Main Street. It does have a name. It's an old road.
Extension of Main Street?
Yeah, believe it or not.
How is it? So it goes, it must snake around from...
Yeah, I didn't know this either.
From the road that goes to Walpole?
Correct. Yeah, that's right.
Oh my God.
We didn't know it. We looked up the old maps, and there it was. So it's actually got a name, Main Street. Ironically, the town's never accepted it as a formal road, which is why it's the way it is. But that's been there a long time.
Oh, for goodness sake! I interrupted you. Go ahead. You were saying if anybody had any ideas.
Sorry. We would. I mean, we don't take advantage of all of the open space we have, and a lot of people don't even know we have it. So we're trying to find a way. We're very good at acquiring it. we're not really good at utilizing it.
Yes.
So, I mean, one of the things I'd love to see us figure out a way to support is how do we develop these trails? How do we maintain these trails? How do we, couldn't we create, and Medfield I think has done this, where they have a map of all of the open space and the trails.
It's very crude. It's just nothing, it's very, but I mean, it's enough
It's
to give
more
you
than
an
we
idea.
got.
Right.
So crude's okay, I mean, it would be a start. So a lot of folks don't know. We've got 25 acres in back of Jane and Paul's farm, or about 23 acres actually, called the old Weber property that we own. Folks don't know we have it. And it's beautiful land, and it's all conservation. No one's going to develop it, use it. And it's a shame that we don't promote this and become more active in informing people what we have, because it's some beautiful, beautiful land that the town owns.
Now, let me just ask, we have about 5 minutes. I've never quite understood the business about how you say that those 5 affordable houses were at no cost to the town.
We have what's known as an inclusionary bylaw. Most towns have this now, because we're required to meet certain levels of affordable housing within our
10%.
community, and we're not there.
How close are we?
Not close, but we're making progress.
Well, that's what, as long as you...
We've doubled. Okay, we've gone from about 2 to 4, which, believe it or not, is actually pretty good. And there's more in the works, so we're making progress. But the homes on Gumps, we purchased the land, and we set aside 5 lots on that property for affordable homes. Our inclusionary bylaw requires that any development that now comes before us, that for every 10 homes in the development, there must be 1 affordable unit. So the homes that are going in over on the Rentham-Norfolk line, there are 49 homes going in to that development that will be in Norfolk. So under our bylaw, they would have to put in 5 affordable homes.
Oh.
So but our bylaw allows those homes to be built off-site as well as on-site.
Well, they probably prefer that, don't they?
Builders do. There are pros and
Because
cons. I won't get into the argument.
Yeah,
I'm not going to get into the argument for or against, because both arguments are valid. But what we did do is we took advantage of the opportunity, quite honestly, to work a deal. And the planning board was very helpful in this. It couldn't have happened without the help of the planning board. Whereby we agreed that, all right, we'll give you the land to build the homes. You will build the homes at no cost to the town, and then we will sell the homes through the lottery process, through the state compliance process, and we keep the revenue. Terrific deal.
So is there ever a case where the town has to pay to have those houses built?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. And that's part of what CPC funds go towards.
Huh.
But in this case, all 5 of those homes were built at no cost
Are
to
they
the
all
town.
done?
No, 3 are done, and the other 2 will be starting construction within the next 30
And
days.
where are they going to be?
One will be on actually, the driveway will be on Medway Branch, right on the corner of Boardman and Medway Branch.
Okay.
And the other one will be down towards Tucker Road, off of Medway
Was
Branch.
there a house, did someone move away right about the time that they were starting to plan Gumps?
Well, the home that used to be
was that
there.
house pulled down?
Yeah, the house that used to be there belonged to the Hendersons, who ran Gump's farm, Kurt Henderson, and they moved to Florida. We bought the property, and we had hoped to salvage the home. The home goes back to the early 50s. And what we found was that it was in terrible condition, loaded with
I
lead.
was in that house.
Yeah, it was a mess. Loaded with lead paint. To rehab it to the standards that the state requires to make an affordable home would have been astronomical.
There's no point to it. I mean,
So, unfortunately, and we hate to lose any piece of, any home that can be salvaged, we want to salvage, but this was not salvageable.
But behind the Gumps, I know there was a driveway behind the Gumps house, and there was another house. Did they move
That's
away?
another, no, that's, well, you're talking about the big white house
Yes.
that's up there? They're moving to Florida. That home is for sale. I don't know if they've sold it or
Oh, the house
not.
is still there.
Yeah, but they're moving to Florida. Yeah.
I think
Something about Florida. Huh?
Time was. I know. I wouldn't want to go there for the.
Me either.
But we've run out of time.
Okay.
But happy Thanksgiving,
You
and thank
too.
you
Have
for
a wonderful
coming on
holiday. It's
again.
always a pleasure to see you.
Well, it's always a pleasure to have you. It makes it easy for me because I don't have to ply anyone with questions. Well, thank you for watching State and Local. My name is Anne Marie Battistone. A very happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you the next time.